when people say Bobbi Brown, I was thinking the makeup artist, which is terrible. I'm Tyler Henry, and today I will be rewatching my Hollywood Medium episode with Bobbi Brown.
Hey,
Whoa. Hey, how you
good to meet
doing?
you. How are you?
I'm Bobby, pleasure.
When Bobby opened the door, I had no idea who he was. I didn't even have a clue.
I didn't know. I thought when people say Bobbi Brown, I was thinking the makeup artist, which is terrible. But I genuinely, granted, it's been a while. That was, in hindsight, super embarrassing, but the man did answer the door, dressed very casually, I might add.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Oh, great meeting
All right.
you.
My name is Bobbi Brown. I grew up as part of a group called New Edition. I went solo and ended up marrying Whitney Houston.
When I watch that clip back, I think back now as a 28-year-old. How did I not recognize Bobbi Brown, right? And that's, I think, one of the greatest takeaways that a lot of people have had beyond the reading itself. And for me, I can only attribute that to naivete, being in the moment, someone introducing themselves as Bobby, and, and really the fact that he looked very different from his 80s self. You know, I think a lot of people, when they see celebrities in the wild, they're surprised by how old they look. And that's because you're seeing them at their oldest incarnation in that moment. We don't get as old as we are right now.
He, as a father, has understood some lessons. And he now knows how important it is to communicate and to talk about how you feel. For him, he was just a hard worker. He just wanted to work. He just wanted to be able to do that. And that was his way of providing. He's having me just acknowledge this feeling of like, I need my son to know how much I love him because I wish I would have said that more in life. And no matter what you would have achieved, he's still coming through and like, he still needs to hear it. He still needs to hear it.
Oh, boy.
It's a lot to take in.
When we see a client respond in a reading, I have to kind of be mindful of it, but I can't get immersed in it. I really view my job as a lot like a mailman, so I don't write the letters, I just deliver the message, and can't get too caught up in what's happening in the moment, but equally have to be considerate and mindful of what the person is going through.
I have a woman coming through, having me talk about her heart. And this is very clear in the way that this comes through. She's very insistent to acknowledge, no matter how I died, I need them to know the heart. I need them to know the heart. And there's a feeling of having a susceptibility to a heart arrhythmia and also having a susceptibility just to a heart issue. But I can distinctly tell there are other aspects to this passing. People talking about this, discussing this heart thing, but it's something else. It's like, or I die of something else, people think I die of something else.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just an emphasis on basically saying like, people don't know the full picture of how, to what extent this really affected me. But it's a weird way for it to get presented from someone to just randomly pop in. Have there been recent discussions about an individual having like a heart thing? Have people said someone had a heart condition?
My ex-wife.
Okay, this feels heavy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, in hindsight, I felt a genuine heaviness on my chest. And that experience was intense in every way. And what I found so interesting about it was, while in the media there are the conversations around Whitney Houston and addiction, the emphasis there in that reading, which in some ways I'm glad I didn't really know from a recognition perspective the full story. So it wasn't biased by the drug narrative. I was getting a very strong emphasis on heart health, heart problems, regardless of what informed or contributed to that. That was really the source of the message.
She used drugs, but the way she passed was not a way that I would have I can accept that she passed.
Wow. The way this comes through, and I'm going to handle this sensitively, the feeling that comes across is that if someone may have used substances to some extent throughout their life, the feeling is that I know that when I utilize these substances, I'm not going over the amount that I would know to normally take. This doesn't feel like someone who's necessarily directly blaming drugs, even though there's obviously contributing factors, but
there's something else.
It's heart. It's heart. Heart is fundamentally what she perceives as being the catalyst
to her
death. Just because the amount that she would have used, she'd done before. And so the feeling is like, it didn't kill me then, why would it kill me now? Unless there's something wrong with my ability to kind of process or metabolize this.
Okay.
I have people come through who very often will reflect in hindsight of an awareness of things they didn't know at the time, and oftentimes do have to let go of how they passed in some way to be able to embrace life in a new way.
She's very selective in the way she comes through. She's not giving me like a ton. She's very private when she's connecting. Very, very private.
When he brought up the heart situation, it made some sense. He was bringing forth my ex-wife, and I mean, I don't think he knew that it was my ex-wife that was communicating to him.
There was really no reference of the career on Earth, and I think if there had been, I would have been able to kind of recognize through those pieces. But Whitney, as she presented as Whitney the mother, Whitney the wife, Whitney the daughter, and that was really beautiful to connect to beyond what people would expect from a celebrity.
She's having me refer to a reference of remarriage. She's having me acknowledge a thumbs up, which references to getting married and being approving of the person we're with. And I feel like this would be her way of acknowledging this sense of happiness that you've been able to move on.
I think that in some ways, the fact that Whitney came through in that reading for Bobbi, it innately was a personal connection between two people who loved each other very much. But of course, being that she had such a large audience, there were messages for fans. I think her focus on her heart health versus some of the issues she dealt with was a greater takeaway. She wanted to, from my perspective, be remembered as the artist, as the passionate human being, and not defined by the struggles she had.
She is connecting hands with what looks like a child. And she's coming through, and she wants everybody to know that she helped her little girl when her little girl transitioned, and it doesn't.
My ex-wife and my daughter. My daughter passed, and my ex-wife passed also.
She's coming through and giving me this feeling of, I was there to hold her hand when she made her transition, when she left. People would have felt her mother around when she passed away.
When I receive a message, it's through a number of sensations. I have to take into account any changes in my five senses, but I also have to be very aware of mental changes and mental images. For me, when I do a reading, it's very interpretive. I have kind of a symbol bank that over time I've been able to kind of create and helps me better interpret the information that comes in. So through that, I saw two hands clasping one another without really knowing the entirety of the full context of how that applied.
So this is so random, but there's a joke about a Tina Turner impersonation or someone impersonating Tina Turner, and it comes across in a funny way. Remember that I'm saying this.
The Tina Turner thing is amazing, because my daughter used to dress up as Tina Turner and run around the house doing all of Tina Turner's dances, and it's just like, wow, nobody could have known that. Nobody.
When I think of my reading with Bobbi, I think of the Tina Turner impression. That, for me, was one of the funnier, greater takeaways because it was something so substantive, it was so specific and detailed, and really reflected Bobbi Kristina as a child, that youthfulness, that energy, and the smile it brought to his face is really what it's all about.
The feeling that comes through is basically an acknowledgement from this younger female that she knew how much she was loved, that she was told how much she was loved. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. When her mom died, me and my daughter was estranged. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Of course, sometimes answers can help. I don't know why this is coming across, but she loves her mom and she loves her dad so much. And she understands that you both were in extraordinarily unique situations, but she comes across basically saying, I understand they did what they had to do to get by from their perspective. And she acknowledges being a little girl, and she was very smart as a child, but she wanted you to know that she wasn't as detrimentally affected by these things as people might have said that she was. Because when she comes across, she's like, I had an amazing life. I had so many opportunities.
What was so interesting about Bobbi Kristina's kind of presence in that reading was that there was not as much of an emphasis on the cause of passing as much as there was more of an emphasis on her life. What I found so intriguing was the very distinct reference to Bobbi Kristina dressing up as another pop star, not Whitney Houston, and the fact that this was done and it was a sweet memory that Bobbi had of his daughter, something that was not public and couldn't have been guessed. So it was really beautiful.
I have some things here.
Sure,
That
absolutely.
was a picture of me and my daughter. Yeah, my baby girl.
That's...
My twin.
Oh my gosh, that is surreal. That's
Yeah.
Kristina. Wow.
Well, I'm glad she let me know exactly what I needed to know.
Oh my gosh, that is so surreal.
Bobbi Kristina, I feel like there had been a Dr. Phil episode that I had been familiar with. And so, of course, when I saw the picture, I was like, oh, funny enough, I recognized her more than I recognized Bobby Brown.
My ex-wife was Whitney Houston.
I gathered after
You
seeing
did
that
that?
picture.
Oh, really?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't realize that the person I was bringing through was Bobbi Kristina Brown and Whitney Houston. I am in complete shock.
Duh. I think on some level, conveying the full identity wasn't necessarily that important to them. They knew who they were there to connect with, and he knew who he was there to feel and hear messages from. And so I think they kind of reflected that through the course of the reading. It was more about the substance of the message than necessarily having to bring through one's discography or tour schedule.
You've hit the nail on the head with everything that I wanted to hear, everything that I needed to hear. I don't know how to say, push me to move on.
Yeah.
I'm just really thankful. I'm really thankful that you came. You have a gift that is beyond what any psychiatrist or any doctor could, ever, tell me or give me.
They are very much a part of this new life, just in a different way. So please know that.
Okay. He just made me feel comfortable with going on with my life, which is a great thing. I needed that.
Come here.
My time with Bobby was one of the most special of all of the readings I did because I felt like in our takeaways, I left being able to provide him a little bit of peace of mind, to being able to have clarity, and with that, I think, tie up some loose ends. But I left that reading in shock. It took me about 3 weeks to come down from that. I was like, oh my goodness, Whitney Houston. And that experience really showed me the value of both knowing and not knowing. And in some ways, I'm glad I didn't. It made it a lot more humanizing than I think some of my expectations may have landed. I encourage people to look at all of the readings and see what could be Googled, and then I encourage people to apply that same degree of scrutiny over the things that couldn't have been Googled. I think if you really look fairly at all of what's came through, being that there are celebrities being read, of course there's public information about them, and of course that information may come through, but it's the things that can't be known, can't be guessed, can't be gleaned, that substantiate a reading, and it is that information that's got me where I'm at in my career, and has gotten me the celebrity repertoire that I have, and with over 600,000 requests for private one-on-one readings. So it's really the things that people take away that only they know between them and the person who's passed that makes the difference. You can check out all of my readings on the E! Entertainment YouTube channel. Plus, you can check out my new Netflix show, Live from the Other Side, on September 17th. Thanks for watching.